Hey everyone, I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for this explainer. Today, we are going to do a literal minute-by-minute breakdown of a day that completely halted the capital of India. We're unpacking the massive youth protests that rocked Delhi on July 20th. We'll be looking directly at the timeline, the intense political fallout, and the raw street-level realities that unfolded right in the shadow of Parliament. So grab your focus because we're going to reconstruct exactly how a student movement brought the nation's legislative heart to a complete standstill. Okay, let's dive into this. What exactly happened on those streets? To really understand this, we have to look at the dramatic escalation driven by the Cockroach Jumta Party, or CJP, and thousands of students protesting the NEET medical entrance exam paper leaks. The sources we're analyzing today paint a wild picture. It was a day where two vastly different realities just collided head-on. Thousands of frustrated youths on one side and heavily fortified state security on the other. This wasn't just your run-of-the-mill protest. It was a highly coordinated march that directly challenged the start of the monsoon session of Parliament. But how did it get so big, so fast? Well, to define all initial expectations, there's a surprising number that really stands out in our sources: 44. In just 44 days, this entire movement exploded from what critics initially brushed off as just an online meme fest or a social media campaign into an overwhelming physical siege of the capital. I mean, the CJP actually managed to mobilize thousands of youths to physically turn up in Delhi. It's an incredibly surprising fact. Think about it. In a little over a month, an online outcry transformed into a sweeping ground reality that forced the government to completely rewrite its security protocols for the day. Now, to understand a movement mobilizing this quickly, you really have to look at its demands. What did they want? The CGP presented three very specific ultimatums to the government. First, the immediate release of activist Sonam Wangchuk, who had been detained in a hospital while on a hunger strike. Second, they demanded the resignation of the education minister, Dharmendra Pradhan, holding him directly accountable for the whole NEET exam mess. And third, they demanded a compensation of 1 crore rupees for the families of students who tragically took their own lives because of the NEET crisis. These three pillars were the absolute driving force behind why thousands of youths were marching that morning. And it's absolutely crucial to note how the day began. CJP founder Abhijit Dipki issued very clear, very public instructions to the gathering crowds. He told them to carry a rose, the Constitution, the tricolor, and photos of Mahatma Gandhi and B.R. Ambedkar. He explicitly warned them not to engage with anyone trying to incite violence or riot, essentially putting them on high alert that agitators might try to infiltrate their ranks. This brilliantly illustrates that the leadership was really trying to set a strictly nonviolent, democratic tone for this massive crowd gathering at Jantar Mantar. However, the timeline laid out in the sources reveals a highly suspicious buildup leading into the morning. Let's look at the clock. At 5 a.m., observers noted a heavy truck loaded with stones parked right near the Jantar Mantar protest site. Weird, right? By 6 a.m., the Rapid Action Force was heavily deployed, but sources captured video footage of some personnel actively hiding their required name tags in their pockets. Then, by 7 a.m., even though police set up multiple checkposts to restrict entry, the crowd simply kept building, just bypassing the barriers altogether. And finally, by 8 a.m., in a strategic move, students from the ISA organization who had been fasting alongside Wangchuk officially broke their fast to join the march. The tension in the air was literally palpable before the sun was even fully up. From there, things escalated incredibly quickly. By 9 a.m., the sheer volume of protesters completely overwhelmed police estimates. To stop them, police had erected these massive 10-foot barricades and literally welded them shut. Welded them, but the crowd was so immense that they broke right through these welded barriers. At 10 a.m., panicked authorities took the drastic step of sealing key metro station exits, including the notoriously busy Rajiv Chowk, just to stop more youth from flooding in. And by 11 a.m., the march had breached heavy security measures and reached the immediate vicinity of Parliament. And by this point, they were bolstered by opposition political leaders physically jumping barricades to join them. And this brings us to an afternoon that presented a really jarring split-screen reality. From noon to 3 p.m. on one side, you've got closed-door negotiations. CJP representatives Saurabh Das and Ashutosh Ranka are sitting inside the residence of Health Minister J.P. Nadda, formally presenting their three demands. But simultaneously, on the other side, absolute chaos on the streets. Internet jammers were deployed, tear gas was fired, and protesters faced heavy police lathi charge just a stone's throw from Parliament. It was literally peace talks in the living room and street battles on the pavement. The street-level events reached a violent climax near the Press Club of India, which, if you know Delhi, is remarkably close to Parliament.
Sources report seeing quick response teams actually taking up firing positions as a deterrent. The deployment of tear gas and severe lathi-charge left many young protesters bloodied. There are also stark claims from the sources that Sonam Wangchuk's partner, Gitanjali, was allegedly assaulted and pulled by her hair by authorities during the crackdown. Our sources describe these as completely unprecedented scenes for the heart of the capital in recent history. It really highlights the raw force deployed by the state to push the crowd back. Naturally, this explosion of street activity created a massive political echo inside the government chambers. Leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, reacted strongly to the government's handling of the youth. He released a video statement saying, "The boys and girls who are walking the streets of Delhi are not criminals. They are demanding their rights." This really highlights how the opposition immediately framed the youth not as a security threat, which is what the police deployment suggested, but as citizens exercising their democratic voice against a failing education system. We also saw incredibly fiery and diverse responses from other opposition figures. Shiv Sena leader Sanjay Raut went on record stating, if permission for a march to Parliament is not given, it should head towards the ED headquarters and Supreme Court. Now, this rhetoric is essential to understand the escalation. Opposition leaders were actively arguing that if the democratic space to protest near Parliament was blocked, well, the students should take their grievances directly to the doorsteps of other major national institutions. So the crucial point here is how the street chaos directly impacted the very institution it was marching towards. Inside Parliament, the monsoon session's opening day was essentially derailed. There were heavy vocal protests by the opposition regarding the NEET paper leaks. Samajwadi Party MPs were reportedly detained on the streets while others staged walkouts inside. Ultimately, the pressure from the streets and the sheer noise inside forced the Parliament session to be adjourned entirely for the day. Sources even noted that the Prime Minister left the Parliament premises amidst this immense institutional disruption. I mean, think about that. The sheer scale of the protest had effectively halted the nation's legislative business for the day. As the afternoon bled into the evening, the government took decisive, sweeping action to end the day's events. From 4 p.m. onwards, the police systematically cleared the entire Jantar Mantar protest site. And they didn't just move people. They completely dismantled the physical stage that had been used by the CJP and Sonam Wangchuk for weeks. By removing the physical footprint of the protest, authorities attempted to visually and literally erase the movement from the center of Delhi. However, fast forward to 9:30 p.m., and sources reported that the remaining protesters hadn't given up. Actually, scratch that. They had simply regrouped near Kerala House, vowing to continue their demonstrations. When synthesizing all this information, our sources come to a very distinct conclusion. Despite the physical stage being torn down and the heavy police crackdown, sources analyzed July 20th not as a failure for the students, but as a widespread, undeniable awakening. For 44 days, this movement had largely been subjected to mainstream media blackouts, but the sheer scale of this march, it forced the entire capital and really the entire country to react. It made the issue of the NEET paper leaks and student rights impossible for the government or the media to ignore any longer. Which brings us to the final lingering question of this explainer. Looking back at the welded barricades, the tear gas, the closed-door negotiations, and the adjourned parliament, was this movement crushed by state force, or did the youth of India truly awaken and permanently shift the political landscape? It's a delicate balance between state security and democratic protest, and the events of July 20th will undoubtedly be studied for a very long time. I hope this structured breakdown helped you grasp the full picture of what really went down. Keep questioning, keep learning, and thank you so much for joining me to explore this complex, powerful day.